So what do you know about the US-Mexico-Canada agreement? If you've contacted your congressman about it, then you know by their responses that both sides of the political aisle are hoping to see it passed. Their responses espouse how much good that trade does and how USMCA will bring in thousands of jobs. But they are missing an imperative factor that places the US one step closer to us existing as the member countries of the EU, primarily being governed by unaccountable bureaucracies. And we'll talk about this and exactly where you can find it in the USMCA today on this episode of Analysis Behind the News, where we provide the perspective that you can use to help save American liberty and independence. Regarding the USMCA, and actually nearly all bills in Congress, really, congressmen duck the question of whether or not they have read the bill and merely parrot the talking points of those supporters who stand to largely gain from the agreement. Another issue they avoid answering is one of American sovereignty, the ability to govern ourselves. The war for independence severed the ties to unaccountable bureaucracy, and free trade agreements as a whole have been used to tie us back into unaccountable regional and international bureaucracy, much like that of the European Union. NAFTA was a building block for a North American Union, and the USMCA would primarily serve as another stepping stone toward merging the US, Mexico, and Canada. Now, how can we be sure? The New American published last week an online article titled, "What's Really in the USMCA?" Researcher Christian Gomez points out the pitfalls of the agreement, including how the USMCA is integrating the three countries economically, as well as through its energy grid and energy-related natural resources. How the USMCA codifies the extremist alarmism of the United Nations concept of sustainable development, how the agreement writes laws for workplace protections for migrant workers and non-nationals, as well as creating protections for gender identity and gender-related issues. How it establishes an international governing commission similar to that of the European Union, and how the USMCA subordinates American sovereignty to international law and world bodies. Now, to prove all of this, Mr. Gomez has compiled an index that links to various portions of the 2,325-page agreement, as well as its annex pages and side letters. We call this the USMCA Issues Index. Now, last week, we mentioned one example and gave you a link to Chapter 8 of the agreement. This week, we are providing this one-page, double-column PDF that highlights no less than 23 examples of how the USMCA is attacking American sovereignty. Remember, the European Union was not created overnight, nor with one agreement. It took about 60 years and 10 treaties for members of the EU to be economically and then politically integrated. America is about 25 years into this process of creating a North American Union with NAFTA as the starting agreement. The USMCA will push this globalist agenda ahead by creating key milestones that will be very hard to overcome if they are implemented. One of these is the Free Trade Commission. This commission will, at its beginning, have control of about 13 committees that it creates and will make decisions for on various issues. Now, let's give you some examples. According to Chapter 30 of the USMCA, the Free Trade Commission will be empowered with the ability to consider proposals to amend the USMCA without the consent of Congress. It can also change the schedule for the elimination of certain duties or tariffs, which is supposed to be a constitutional duty of Congress. The Commission will have the power to dissolve, merge, or create new lower committees. It will control the flow or movement of foreign nationals, and it will promote the economic integration of the participatory nation states. Now, what this adds up to is the fact that the USMCA would become a living agreement with plenty of room for expansion. The European Union Commission is an unelected, unaccountable bureaucracy that sets the legislative agenda and enforces that legislation, essentially assuming many of the duties that we would expect our legislative and executive branches to handle. As the British people are now experiencing in their Brexit efforts, it is much easier to fight for sovereignty, liberty, and independence now than waiting until the battle is much further along and nearly impossible to win. We have that chance to safeguard American liberty and independence today. So please, tell your congressman and President Trump to stop the building of the North American Union by voting no if and when the USMCA comes up for a vote. Media reports are pointing to any time between now and Thanksgiving 2019 as a target. Please contact them today and get others to do so as well. We've made it easy for you to do so using links below in the video description, or head over to jbs.org/USMCA. Then please consider applying for membership in the John Birch Society as we work together as a whole to protect American liberty and independence. And please be sure to like and share this video as well as subscribe. And until next time, we'll see you then.